Are you planning a trip to Nicaragua? Or maybe you're thinking about it for your next vacation? I'm Amy, a full-time traveler, and last April I spent 3 weeks traveling around Nicaragua, and I wanted to share some tips so you can decide if it's the best destination for you. So let's get into it. You might be wondering how long you should spend in Nicaragua, and it definitely depends on the type of travel experience you want to have and how you travel and your different preferences. However, to experience the full beauty and see as much as possible, I'd recommend a minimum of 2 weeks. And before you enter the country for yourself, here are a few essential tips that I wish I'd known before I went to Nicaragua. The currency in Nicaragua is the Cordoba, and I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, but they also use the US dollar, and cash is king. So that means you're gonna wanna take out some cash when you first arrive for taxis, for hostels, hotels, etc. Some places will accept card, but it's far less frequent than cash, so make sure you have some with you. When it comes to transport, there are a few different options to get around, the most popular being the chicken bus. So the name is a bit confusing, but chicken buses are just refurbished school buses, and they're public buses that anyone can get on. They're super cheap, but they are packed. So if you're taking a chicken bus, you can expect to be standing for probably a few hours if it's a long journey, or squished up against many people. And make sure you keep an eye on things, because things can go missing when people take your luggage and move it to the back of the chicken bus. So that's something to keep in mind. I had a water bottle stolen that filters water. Luckily, none of my valuable camera, laptop gear was taken, so always just be aware of that. There are also taxis that can get you from place to place, but they will be the most expensive option. And there are also shuttle buses. So we took some shuttle buses between different cities to get around, and they are definitely more pricey than the chicken buses, but more direct, and it's a small group of people on these shuttle buses. Backtracking to the taxis, I wanted to just explain so you have a good idea. To get from Managua to Ometepe is about, I think it's just a few hour drive, and it was about $100 US. When it comes to accommodation, there are hotels, hostels, Airbnb, etc. However, we were traveling on a budget, so we just stayed at hostels, and to give you an idea, they were a little bit more expensive than I anticipated. The dorm rooms were about $20 US per night, and if you wanted a private room at a hostel, they were around $50 per night. Of course, hotels would cost more, so you can do a little bit of research if you want to stay in a hotel. When it comes to food in Nicaragua, don't get me wrong, the fruit is amazing, it's fresh, and it tastes so great. However, the general overall food I wouldn't rate super highly. I'd give it maybe a 7 out of 10, maybe even a 6 out of 10 based on what they have at grocery stores. But if you're eating at restaurants, you can find some really nice ones. You just have to make sure that you have a higher budget, because the food definitely ate into our budget really quickly. And lastly, Spanish is widely spoken in all of Central and South America, so it is the first language that most people speak, and you will have a little bit of a harder time if you don't speak any Spanish. So I was in Colombia previously and Costa Rica, and I picked up a bit of Spanish, but it wasn't amazing. So I'd recommend picking up a little bit before you go, doing a few lessons, because it will definitely help you. And when you're in Nicaragua, try practicing with locals and just put in an effort, because I think that's the best way to travel, is to learn the local language if you can. And I definitely want to improve my Spanish next time I'm there. Okay, so let's get into specific cities, starting with Managua, which is the capital, and if you're flying into Nicaragua, you're probably going to be flying there. I don't really have anything amazing to say about Managua, to be honest, and if you are just flying in and out, I wouldn't spend more than a day on either side just to get settled into the country, but there isn't really that much to offer in Managua. Okay, so now getting into Ometepe. Ometepe Island is a massive island, and it's a little bit of a mission to get there from Managua, which is where we went from. There are some chicken buses, but you'd have to get a taxi to the bus station and then another taxi off of a main road where the chicken bus stops. So we opted for a taxi, which was a much more pricey option, but after a long travel day, I'd say it was definitely worth it. When you end up getting to the ferry port, you can buy tickets for the ferry on the day of, and it's not a very long ferry, and it's not that pricey either. It's pretty cheap, and I think it was only about an hour or two, so it's pretty chill. And once you actually get to the island, then you can find a taxi to take you over to your accommodation. Getting to your accommodation can also add up, so just have some extra cash for this taxi, and if you can, try to split it with someone. That will definitely save you some money, and I always do that when I'm traveling. I'd recommend that you look into the area of Ometepe you want to stay in. We ended up staying in some random part of the island that was quite far from the busy backpacker area because I was meeting up with my long distance boyfriend and we wanted a private room that was not too pricey. But looking back, we should have stayed in Santa Cruz, which is definitely where all the backpackers stay. There are so many hostels there. It's a little bit more hippie. And it is quite far from where we were staying. So the island is massive and there is quite a lot that you could do. You can climb up one of the volcanoes. There's 2 on this island, many places to swim and just relax, as well as have some really good food at the restaurants there. But once again, I would definitely look at Santa Cruz as an area to stay in because it's the most connected. If you want to get around the island, you pretty much need to get a scooter. If you're not comfortable doing that, then you can hire a bike. The scooter hires were pretty cheap and bikes were even cheaper. So do one or the other so you can see a few different things. And when it comes to taking money out, there's only like 1 or 2 ATMs on this island. So make sure you take out enough cash beforehand so you don't have to keep going quite far to get to this ATM. Activity-wise, there isn't a whole lot to do on Ometepe, but it has a really chill and relaxed vibe, and I would definitely stay longer in Ometepe if I were to go back to Nicaragua or if I could redo my travel experience. We stayed a week and I could have easily spent a few weeks there. Next up is San Juan del Sur, and some of you might have seen my previous video where I was pretty much hating on San Juan. So if you want to see that in detail, you can go watch the video after you watch this one, but I'll give you a tidbit of information in case you don't have the time. I pretty much just don't think a visit to San Juan is worth it because it's basically just a touristy party town. So unless you're really, really determined to just go out and party every single night and have a great time partying and watch a beautiful sunset, then that's all it really has to offer, in my opinion. I don't really think it's worth the hype, so I would skip it and spend more time elsewhere. So the city of Leon is another popular spot for tourists, and to get there, if you're coming from a southern part of the country, you will have to go through Managua and get a shuttle bus to take you to Leon. Then when you arrive, you get on these like tricycle bikes to take you to your hostel, or you could walk, but I think it was a 45-minute walk from the bus station. So there is a lot of like moving around if you have backpacks and a lot of stuff with you, which I found a bit inconvenient just in general for Nicaragua. However, Leon is definitely a must for the volcano boarding. This was the highlight of our trip probably. I really enjoyed it. They do day trips from the hostels in Leon. I was gifted one with the hostel, Bigfoot Hostel. We stayed there for free. We got to do this experience and it was incredible. In exchange, I created some content for them and it was so much fun. Basically, you go on a hike and you hike up this volcano. Everyone boards down around sunset. You watch the sunset, have a couple of drinks, have some snacks, and then the bus back that's about an hour long is a party bus, and it was so worth it. It was so much fun. Even as someone who doesn't drink and party that much, that was such a good time. We just had a fun group and it was a great experience. When it comes to the city itself, Leon is so hot. At least in the time we were there in April, it was like 35 minimum to 40 degrees Celsius and so humid and so hot. So we didn't really do much. We were all just so exhausted all day long, but they have a cute market. They have a beautiful cathedral that you can walk on the rooftop of. So those are a few things to do, but otherwise you wouldn't really need too much time there. So this might be an unpopular opinion, but I really enjoyed my time in Granada. It's actually the oldest city in all of the Americas, which is pretty cool, and the architecture and history is just so inspiring, and I loved wandering around this city. The main type of trips or activities you can do from Granada is a trip to a volcano, which we didn't end up doing because I think the entry fee was about $20. You have to pay for a shuttle on top of that. And while it's pretty cool because you can see the lava from above, it's not really a hike. You just walk up and there's guardrails and that's it. So we decided to skip it for budget's sake. but that's something you can do. Another thing that you can do is a treehouse rave. So these happen every Thursday, I believe. I'll find it for you. And it looks incredible, but you have to buy tickets ahead of time. So we missed out on it because we didn't get tickets the week beforehand. So if this is something you're interested in doing, make sure you get a ticket early, and pretty much every hostel will arrange a shuttle for you. Finally, we have the Corn Islands on the Caribbean coast of Nicaragua. We didn't end up going just because we didn't have time to cross the country and get to these islands, but I heard amazing things about them, especially about Little Corn. It's just a great place to relax. However, if you're working remotely like I was, there is no reception or barely any reception, not great Wi-Fi, so that's something to keep in mind. So that pretty much wraps up my thoughts on Nicaragua and some tips that I had to share for you. In all honesty, I'm not jumping to go back to Nicaragua anytime soon. However, I do think that's because we had a lower budget for this trip. So if I had a better budget, I would definitely have a more extravagant experience, and I think I would enjoy everything that Nicaragua has to offer a little bit more. I'd still say it's worth checking out, especially if you're considering going to the neighboring countries such as Costa Rica or Panama, places that are a little bit more pricey, because this is definitely more budget friendly and it's still a pretty cool country. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for weekly travel videos every single Wednesday. Thanks so much for watching all the way to the end of this video. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!